Lloyd Brown, you're live, brother.
Hello, Steve.
Why Wells Fail? Another excellent episode. We're going to talk about the backstory for refined completions, your years at Smart Chemical, what you learned, what you brought to the table this time around. Why did you want to talk about this today?
On multiple occasions, I've had questions. What's different this time? And almost everything is different. There's some of the same people, but just the ability to look back over the last 5 years and understand the dynamics and the changes and what I learned from being fired as the CEO of Smart. It was a gift, and I wanted to share aspects of what that gift looks like. And if you can't go back, I heard a guy the other day say, really ultimately, we're born into the new day, and yesterday dies at the end of this day. It's it. And it was a great conversation from that perspective, because really we have the ability to learn from our past, but we can't go back and redo it. Even though it appears that we're redoing some things, we're really not. It's completely, it's new and better.
So take us back. We're Smart Chemical. We're running and gunning. Things are going great. And then what happened?
Well, Smart was, dynamic. We went from being founded in 2008, surviving 2009, experiencing dramatic growth in 2010, 11, 12, and then getting kind of greedy and looking to how you could grow even more. And at that point in time, we started looking at how do we grow organically? Do we grow through acquisition? And we started, looking at regional growth, growing into Canada. And there was not respecting and honoring all of the time, effort, energy, and investment by not only my partners, but by our employees. And that's when we started getting some really expensive education, and the ability to go back and look at what was learned over those times was growth for growth's sake, and diversification because it sounds really good, put you into places of not knowing what you don't know. And the consequences of that, they continued to compound themselves up until the point that I was fired. And where that goes is I've been given a gift, and I've learned today the gift of invention, and problem solving is one of the gifts that I have. And because I was so good at getting myself out of trouble, I really didn't have a concept of what finality looked like until I got that phone call on March 28th of 2020. And so this time around, reflecting back on the book that you so highly encouraged me to write, which was a lot different than what we both thought it would start out to be. You're looking at these great rules and how awesome they are, but the only good stories you have are when you're breaking them. And that, serendipitously gave me the opportunity to coach other people. And from coaching them, I started learning, and I started hearing myself talk about process and introducing process and learning about it alongside. And it's really what all those learnings have now culminated themselves. The art of refining is continuous improvement, right? The only way you can continuously improve is to know what you've done in the past and systematically take steps that, especially as you get more mature, improvement when you're a toddler, it's part of your life, right? You're learning to crawl, walk, run. But what happens when you're running, right? You're instead of taking off minutes, you're taking seconds off of your time, and that kind of improvement. So running a business, a high functioning technology based, not a product oriented based business, it takes more discipline and structure. And, that's the big transition. And it is creating an environment. Rule number 5 was the vigorous debate rule. And as we look back, really now today we call rule number 5 the vigorous discernment rule. We're having these conversations because we're not looking to be right, we're looking to do right and discerning what is the right path for our company. And so it's not about being competitive, except with the ideas, with the desire to make great decisions. And when you don't, know how to recover from those decisions. And so that's the real, the foundation for doing it different. The second part of that foundation is we didn't have an operating system. It was taking bits and pieces of things that, I had learned, things that my CFO had learned, board members had learned, and trying to piecemeal an operating system, generally fitting around some form of software that made you do certain things. That became unintentionally your process, right? This time around, within the first 90 days of kicking Refined off, we brought our executive team together and we made a decision. We're going to have an operating system. And we looked at probably 4 different business operating systems. And the one that we landed on is called EOS. It's from the book Traction. And the beautiful thing about that the process tied to that is it required us to really get clarity on, accountability and creating the environment where accountability is practiced consistently, and the desire to have the hard conversations and do it every week, and to have the ability to do your key business metrics on a weekly basis, not waiting for your financials to come out. Because, financials are always already, by the time you get them, 40 days old, right? You're not able to make good, ongoing, continuous decisions. And EOS really put a practice in for us to make highly visible decisions. And there's a company here in Amarillo that I heard somebody quote them, and they said, our purpose is to live in the light, to have no dark places in the company. And that's what process does. Purposeful process, I think, is a better way to put it.
Well, I think one of the things that that you've done, when I worked with you at Smart, and then now I'm working here with you at Refined, and what I've witnessed as far as a transition is there was this deliberate focus on creating a culture. I watched this Netflix series on these great chefs, and they each have these common patterns, and all of them tend to go, and we source the best ingredients, because it impacts the dish. But there was a few that actually went past that further, and they bought property, and they made sure the soil that they grew those ingredients was healthy. So therefore, they had better ingredients that they controlled. And I think that's what the soil, the culture is the soil to an organization. And I think that you've done that on very well, very deliberately, and therefore you're benefiting from the traction. Whereas when I compare and contrast you at Smart, you kind of were in the middle of things, and that you were getting all these wins, but the focus on the unifying aspect of culture wasn't as deliberate as it is now. And I think that's from your lessons that you learned as well. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think to your point, one of the things almost a year ago, last January of 2025, we made the decision to change the cadence of our workflows for our teams. And we had been in the habit of running 14 days on, 7 days off. And we were looking at it, and it was inefficient. It was unsafe. There were continuing practices that it gave the appearance of our team members making more money when all they were doing was kicking themselves into a higher tax bracket and giving the majority of their income in the form of a higher tax bracket to the government. And so one thing we did is we said, hey, we're going to transition to a company that runs 8 on, 6 days off. And if we have to pivot to meet demand, we'll go to 10 and 4 days. And ultimately, and we've had a couple of seasons since we did that we had to run 14 on and 7 off, but it's the exception rather than the rule. Well, when we rolled that out to our team last January, not only were the employees given their money to the government in the form of higher taxes, so was the company, because we have the matching, and we just were transparent. We said, hey, this is what your take-home pay is going to look like here. You're going to have a higher quality of life. We're going to be safer, which is really the most important thing. And then secondarily, here's the benefit for the company. And as we make our numbers, we're going to start paying you a monthly bonus on top of that, even while we're still paying your base hours, your overtime, all of the normal things. But we're going to allow our team to share in that. Within rolling that out, and there was a great fear among the team that we would lose a lot of people. And the fact of the matter is, within the first 30 days, we probably had 15% turnover. But today, our turnover is, for somebody to voluntarily leave our company, is the exception rather than the rule. Our turnover rate has dropped below, on an annualized basis, 5%. When we acquired the company, it was running about 21, 22% per year, which is terrible. And so making that intentional shift, but they had to trust us. So we practiced rule number 1, give trust, earn trust. And as we've gone along, we've earned that trust. Another thing that we did is we told them, hey guys, we do this. We're going to guarantee, even in our slow times, we're not going to have layoffs, and we're going to pay you guys 40 hours a week to sit at home. And we were slow, as most of the industry was, in October and most of November. And I'm getting messages from members of our team saying, hey, thank you for allowing me and paying me this time. I've never experienced a company that would make that investment. But when we look at it, and that goes against the grain for most management books. And in the oil field, we've treated as an industry team members as equipment, almost like equipment. They're exchangeable. So, but we recognize you lose that knowledge base, you lose the training, you lose the gains that you think that you're getting, because you got to go back all over again, retrain, and lose all the efficiencies. Well, now that we're absolutely swamped going into December, January, February, March, I mean, we're adding new team members right now, and it just showed that we built a culture, number one, of trust. We helped explain the why behind it. Another thing we did is in our dashboards, we have taken the team model that we used at the executive level. It's called an L10 in EOS, and we've moved that throughout all of the organization. So we're practicing the same model and meeting metrics at all levels. And one thing that we share about all of our core teams is cash flow. And my CFO is like, "What are you showing them that for?" And I'm like, "I want to know. I want them to know. I want our team members. They need to know when we're doing well and when we're struggling, because cash is there in a business, right?" And so as we had forecasted and had seen October and November becoming slow, and the team members are watching our cash numbers do this, they're like, "Oh my gosh," and they're used to seeing it, right? Again, trust. Because the other part that I learned, is if you don't communicate highly, effectively, and efficiently, somebody's going to. And it's going to be the narrative that they believe based on their life experience. So again, one of the things I learned as a coach is we have to be highly communicators. We have to have the ability to be consistent and highly effective communicators. And if we do that, like that company here in Amarillo says, live in the light, you squeeze out places that the rumor mill and somebody's imagination will fill that void.
Totally. A culture exists, whether it was deliberate or not. And a story exists.
Absolutely.
Whether it's deliberate or not. And it's the hardest challenge for a leader is to clearly communicate to their team, their prospects, and their customers. And I think you do quite well. That's why you're here doing Why Wells Fail. What you've been describing is like how you lead your team, how you get them to come together, how they become more engaged and beneficial. But there's a big upside for the operators that you work with because of that. Let's talk about that. Where's it the rubber hit the road with your operators?
Well, it's operational excellence. We've implemented these different processes and software programs, and one of those is called Motive. And in Motive, it's basically our safety awareness program. And so our team members are recorded on how many observations they make of the workplace. And in that, it gives us the ability to start seeing consistent shortfalls, whether they're within our own organization or other people, because and we've created a real culture of utilizing the stop loss on job location. So if somebody sees something unsafe, it's not only say something, stop it. And one thing in culture we had to change was there was an attitude, hey, I don't want to be that guy that is calling out people, but if you're on a well site and you're fracking, there's 100 people on that site that could eventually be killed from not saying something, not wanting to be that guy. And so I'm like, no, we're people of excellence, and people of excellence call that out because we're bigger than the one person being upset. We're about the 100 people being kept safe. And it's also for themselves. One thing we looked at, and this was all the way back at Smart, we would talk, and a mentor of mine, a guy named Jay Miller, that, man, I can't believe he's been gone 8 years. He was such an impact on me because he said, Lloyd, the law of compounding works in negative environments. And, we find that one person has 10 people that are significantly reliant on them. So if you look at 100 people on a location, there's a minimum of 1,000. And in the Hispanic culture, for example, there's a lot more than 10 as an average people that rely on that one family member. And so, recognizing that it, and helping teach, helping everybody see, because so many times we're, like this, right? And so that's been another big part about being intentional, and it's going to the why, always to the why we have the name Why Wells Fails. If you don't know the why, you don't have clarity.
Yeah. So the clarity that you're bringing to these companies on what refined completions does for them is you're helping them protect their reputation. Everything you've described before this and talked about is you're protecting the reputation of your team, not just your company, but the employees, et cetera. Talk more about that.
Well, it's really a cascading benefit. If we're focused on protecting our team first, everybody goes, "Oh, you got to protect your customers first." And I'm like, "No, who is the interface with the customer? It's the employee." And in a culture of shame, the employee is always the one that's at fault, and you're protecting the reputation of the company, and you're disposing of a replaceable person. We don't see it that way. We're going to teach, train, and equip, build processes that when we do have failures, we're able to go do an analysis and understand why they are. But if we protect our employees, they're automatically going to protect our customers. And if we protect our customers, the company's reputation is protected. So it begins with that reputational protection of your team members. And that's why I've become so convicted in utilizing the practice of process, because flying by the seat of my pants created reputational damage to myself and my team members. It created extraordinarily poor financial performance. It was a peak and valley life at Smart. And because we weren't protecting that profit that had been had so much effort to earn, and being much more intentional about where we invest instead of in understanding why we're going to make an investment rather than, doing it to chase something bigger and better without it having it defined.
So if, let's say that I'm listening to this conversation and I'm interested in maybe working with you, talk about the kind of people that you would consider and what's the process.
Well, one of the things we really enjoy is when our team members make referrals. We found that we're looking for people that, well, let me just kind of back up. We're not looking for family, because some families are really good and some families not so much, right? There's such a broad definition of what family can be, but there's real clarity about extraordinarily highly effective and efficient teams. And so we're looking for people that want to be part of something greater than themselves, that they know their reputation is going to be protected, and the gift of them saying yes and working with us, that gift of that work, they're going to be, number one, compensated well for it, but they know that it's going to be stewarded really well. That's why in our core four, in our tips, stewardship is very important. So if you're a person that is trustworthy, that is innovative, that's purposeful, and practices good stewardship, this is your home, because that's who we are. And so that's why, if you want to be valued and not be deemed replaceable or exchangeable, that's probably a better word. And you want to be working towards more, that's what this company's about, not only internally, but externally for our customers.
The first so many days, what does it look like when you, let's say that you're a good fit, and this is going to be, what are the first, 100 days? What's your process?
Well, we follow and practice the EDGE method. So whatever role that you come into, first is going to be going through physicals and making sure that your body is in a place that you can do the work that is required. And then there's going to be training, significant safety training, and then job training specific to whatever your duties are. Then the next thing is none of our green hats that are new to us and new to the industry, when they go into the field, they're going to be mentored by two highly consciously competent team members. And they're going to learn their role and not have to just be thrown out there to do it by themselves. They're going to be mentored. And so EDGE stands for explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. So at the end of that training period, when we believe that we've got them to 80% competency of what they need to be for that role, we enable them to go into the role, because you have to do things over and over again, right? Become consciously competent at it. And that's where that gap of going 80 to 90 to close to 100% competent. None of us will ever reach perfection. That's not our goal. Our pursuit is of excellence.
All right. And one more last question, then we'll wrap this up. And it's kind of talking about employment, but I think it's important for the operators that choose to work with Refinement, is they know how important the employees and who they're going to be interfacing with is to Refinement. Talk about motivosity.
Motivosity is one of the great surprises. We were looking for a way of how do we create an environment to where we recognize, and one of the things at Smart I was really poor about was the celebrate rule. And motivosity is basically an internal company social platform. And it gives you the ability to recognize peers, co-workers, supervisors, whatever role, for practicing trust, innovation, purposefulness, and stewardship. And so you can give people motivosity bucks that they can go buy from the store that is the Refined Completion store. You can call them out, you can give recognition, you can celebrate birthdays, significant days like anniversaries, company anniversaries, personal anniversaries. And what we noticed is, I did not expect, I was just blown away, is how much our field team and our operations team just jumped in with both feet and started doing this acknowledgement and recognition. And you want to talk about creating cohesiveness. It's an amazing tool. It gives me the ability to get on and specifically recognize team members that I become aware of or that I've recognized through their efforts of practicing excellence. And, you know, at Smart, I used to handwrite birthday cards every month. This is also a way to do that more effectively and efficiently and actually be on the day instead of just mailing them out the week of somebody's birthday, you know? And so there's just, I'm doing a really poor job probably of explaining it, but it's just your internal Facebook for your company, but it's completely focused on the positive uplift of your team members in a way to recognize and reward.
No, it's excellent. The culture of refined completions, when you partner with another company, that culture impacts that company. And so there's all these other collateral benefits that come from a deliberate focus on creating a culture of refined completion. So anyway, this has been excellent. I think it's if someone's been listening, how do they connect with you? And let's say, hey, I'd love to sign up and see if I can get a position there.
Well, as you're well aware of, we just got our employment page live on our website, and so I'd go there, refinecompletions.com. Go to the employment tab, and we've got everything you need to know about how to join our team. And even if I want to encourage, if it doesn't have anything active, please fill it out. We're in a very dynamic environment, and we're going through some significant growth, and we'll be continually updating that. But if you've already put it in, we're going to pull from that pool of team members that are looking to join the Refine team from that group of people that have applied.
Awesome. And if you're an operator that's like, man, I want to partner with these guys. They got some things going. I want to have some of that rub off. Take advantage of the benefits of refined completions. What's the next step?
Well, reach out to me, Lloyd.Brown at refinecompletions.com or at RefineCLloydB here on LinkedIn and X and the other platforms that you may be watching from.
All right. Excellent, Lloyd. Thanks for walking us through that. Culture is such a big deal, and I think it's awesome that you and your team have focused so much on that. So it impacts everybody.
It does.
All right. We'll see you next week, Lloyd.
Thank you, sir.
That's a wrap.